Hello, hi everyone. Am I audible? Can someone confirm in the chat? Is the screen visible? Yep, yep. Okay, great. Thanks for confirmation. Awesome. So, okay, let me give a brief of what am I going to teach in this channel. Like I already have a trailer, but still I'll give a brief. So, first of all, we'll be starting with today's session is about React. But thing is, people are also wondering why not JavaScript and why directly React. So I was actually confused whether I should start JavaScript or should I start React, because people really want to learn React, but and they already know JavaScript or they have some other resources to learn JavaScript. So I thought maybe I'll start with React. So we'll see this session. So this session will be completely on React, and then I'll ask you all to whether next session you want of JavaScript, and then we can do other, or we can switch like React, JavaScript, and then back and forth. We can do that. Um, so even though there are a lot of resources, I still have a lot of content that I cover in JavaScript sessions also. So similarly, as I have created a React workshop, I had conducted JavaScript workshop. So there also I taught a lot of concept about JavaScript. So I plan to teach that also. But today's session is about React. So let me start with it. If you guys have any doubt, so as I'm teaching and I'm looking in the chat, so once I am done with any sort of topic, any after a like 15-20 minutes or like after half an hour, I'll look at the chat. If you have doubt, I'll clear that doubt. So please ask your doubts. And yeah, so let's just begin. Okay, so the link of this is in the description, so you can refer it. And I'll update the slides also because I think I need to update some of the part. Yeah, but I'll for now let's just start. So what is React? React is a declarative. Okay, first let me just go to the entire definition, then I'll explain you each and every part. Component based JavaScript library for building user interfaces, which can be learned once and written anywhere. Okay, so this is the definition. I mean, not a technical definition, this is what I have put together. Okay, and this is from the website itself, so this is not something that I have created or anything, but this is what I have formed. So let's break it down. What does declarative mean? Okay, so I'll explain you with a example which I use in all my sessions. So everyone I think would be knowing Avengers and would be familiar with Thanos. So earlier, before Thanos acquired all the Infinity Stones, what he used to do, he used to go to each and every planet and had to kill half of the people manually, like taking his forces and taking his all his what do you say army, and then annihilating half of the population. That is what he had to do. So that was imperative way of doing, going to each and every planet and doing his stuff. Then once he received the stones, okay, so he just had to do a snap. So he just had to do a snap. Basically, he just had to call a function, and that did all of his work, okay, in just one click. So that's what sort of analogy that I can give about imperative and declarative. I'll explain you in technical terms also, like when I demo the React part. But this is how it is. Like imperative is like exactly how to do things, okay, and declarative is like calling a function to do that thing, okay. So don't worry, I'll explain in programmatic way also. But yeah, this is the gist of it. Then coming to component base, so I'll just open reactjs.org. So explain that reactjs.org. Okay, so component base meaning your entire web page is not just web page, your entire website is divided into different components. Okay, and the how they look like, see here, if you see this nav bar, that itself is a component. Each nav item is a component. The search bar is a component. This hero section, that's a component. Okay, so the advantage of using component based library is that different people can start developing parallelly. Okay, let's say one person is in charge of developing this navigation, one person is in charge of developing the hero, one is in charge of developing the body. Okay, so they can do parallelly and then they can stitch together, like they just can provide their components and then they can just put it in one main component. So that's one. Another is reusability. So if you see this all these three, they look very similar, right? Only thing changes the heading and their content. So this is just one component being reused in 3 different ways. So the changes, the data that is changing is that is actually known as props, but we will props.state, we'll discuss about that in later. But just you see, same component just having different titles and different description. So another advantage of component base is that reusability. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you that's the gist of what a component base means. It's very intuitive, nothing out of the scope. Then JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So the important keyword here is library, meaning it's not a framework, it's a library, and I'll explain you what is the difference. The difference is just inversion of control. Okay, so whether you give your code to a particular code or your code is executed by something else, that is meant by what is inversion of control. Okay, maybe I confused you, but let me explain it better. See, in I'll take an example of Angular. So what happens in Angular is that you have your predefined way of doing routing, you have the predefined way of managing state, you have predefined way of writing if and for and all those stuff. React does only one thing good, which is rendering your UI. Okay, rendering your UI fast. Everything else like routing or even state management, it does provide it, but also it has external libraries also, right? And that's what the thing about React. It does only one thing and one thing good, that is rendering your UI fast. Everything else it leaves up to you. It leaves your up to your choice what you want to which library you want to use. For routing, we have the popular one, React router. There is one more option, reach router, so you can use either of them. Mostly we'll be using React router. Then comes for state management, there are like 20 plus libraries, you can use any of them. Okay, and then coming to what else, like CSS and all those frameworks. So and also in React, except for the JSX part, okay, and some component and hook stuff, uh, everything else is pure JavaScript. Okay, so you don't have to learn something which you're not going to use somewhere else. Let's say tomorrow, let's say after 5 or 6 years, React doesn't is not in demand, you have to learn something, some other framework. Then amount of knowledge that you transferred from React to the next framework is not wasted. Okay, most of it is JavaScript. Okay, so that's what I like about React also, and that's why it is a library and not a framework. Okay, um, coming to the next and the last line, which can be learned once and written anywhere, meaning you can write React apps for web, for mobile, and even for desktops. So for web, we know React and ReactDOM. For native, there is React Native or Expo CLI. You can use the creator for that. And for desktop, there is Electron and also React Native Desktop. Okay, so there is something known as React Native Desktop also, which is also there, and Electron is also there. These are both frameworks which can make use of React to make your web applications or desktop application or mobile application, and also cross-platform, not just Windows or Mac OS specific. Everything is cross-platform. Okay, so that's why there is a very good reason for you to learn React, and not just that. Currently, the market is hiring capable React developers for any amount that you demand. Okay, so just make yourself a capable React developer. And one more important thing, though I'm starting my first session of this channel with React, I'll iterate one thing, that JavaScript is very, very important to know to start React. Okay, so I'm assuming a lot of you know React, sorry, a lot of you know JavaScript, but for the first session it won't matter much because I'll be walking through all the JavaScript part too. But from coming sessions, you would know, you should have a good knowledge of JavaScript. Okay, and don't worry, I'll plan to teach JavaScript also. We'll see how and when we'll do that, but yeah. So this is a gist about React. Okay, so now let me just see a chat if there is anything. Otherwise, I'll just go forward. Just a second. Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, cool. I hope it's clear till now. Fine. Let me just continue. Building UI with plain JavaScript. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. So let me just go over here. Here I'm going to just create a simple index.html file, and we'll have the boilerplate code for HTML. Let me give the title as React session 1. And I'll just have a div with an ID of root. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a h3 tag, okay, into this div, but using JavaScript. Okay, so for that I will add a script tag, and here I'll give type equals to module. So usually you might be aware that you give it like text slash JavaScript, right? But I'm using module, and there are some differences between them. I'll just tell you a couple of them. One, module is always in strict mode. Okay, so if you don't know strict mode, then we'll learn about it in JavaScript. Okay, and there are other, like I can do import and export and all those stuff I can do over here, and by default this is I think deferred. So yeah, there are a lot of differences. Okay, we'll talk about that in detail when we learn about JavaScript, but for now just understand this is a different type. This is not textless JavaScript, this is module. Okay. Now yeah, I have this GitHub Copilot, so it's giving me suggestions, so I'll use it whenever required, otherwise I won't use it. So first of all, to add any element to my DOM, what do I require? Okay, can someone tell me? Okay, because I actually, the reason I did not take YouTube sessions is because I want it live. I want people to interact with me, but I think your chat is good enough. So if you can tell me to add a uh, element into the DOM, what do I require? Can someone tell me? How do I get it? An anchor element. Okay, I mean the okay, maybe I'll clarify it more. So if I want to add anything to div, okay, first of all I need to get access to the div, right? How do I get access to div? Anyone? Get element by id. Yep, so that's one of the ways, get element by id. So I'll just do const, I'll just say root equals to doc awesome, document.get element by root. Okay, now I need to add a h3 tag. So to create an h3 tag, I'll use const h3, I'll just name it like this, and there is a document dot create element h3. Okay, now I want to do two things. I want to give some text to it, so I'll give some text. Okay, using inner text or text content, anything is fine. I'll give Avengers symbol. Also I want to add a class. So how do I add a class? Does someone know how do I add a class? Anyone? Append class. Okay, I'll show you how to do it. It's h3 dot class list dot add. Okay, so container. So this is what I did. Okay, now correct, the next slide is correct. I need to append the child to root, so that's the line, and I think now it should work. Let's just open the live server. Yes, we got Avengers assemble. Let's even look at the DOM. This is what we had written in the HTML. This is what we got from JavaScript. Okay, so this is simple, nothing much fancy. But now I want to do the same thing using React. So how will I do this same thing using React? Okay, so okay, first of all, tell me, if I want to get started with React, if I want to do anything with React, how can I get started? What are the ways? How to get started? Create React app. Okay, anything else? Okay, so I think create React app or Vite. Okay, another one, another template created. But yeah, I'll tell you, I don't want that. Okay, I don't want so many npm modules, and I don't want all that other stuff that comes with create React app. Sorry, I just want the React library. So how can I get it? I'll go to the this official documentation. I'll search for CDN links. Sorry, and I'll just use these two script tags and edit in my index.html. That's it. Okay, now I'll explain what is CDN links and all this stuff. Basically, CDN links meaning your entire React code, the React library code, is hosted at this URL. Okay, I'll show you. This is the entire code. I'm just importing that script into my HTML. Okay, that's what I do. So when I sorry, wrong tab. Yeah, so when I do this, what happens is it first of all fetches the entire code from this address and it executes that code. Okay, so once it executes that code, I will have access to React. Same for ReactDOM. It will fetch that code and it will execute, and I'll have access to ReactDOM. Okay, so now let's do that. So I'll just comment this part, or actually not this one, the root I'll need, so I'll just comment this part. Okay, let me just now write const 3 and just say ELE, just to differentiate between the. Now I'm going to use an API or a function, I'll say for better understanding, a function of React, which is known as create element. So React dot create element. Because I have imported the CDN links I have with this script tag, I have access to React, okay, globally, because that code is executed and then only I am running this, so that's why I have access to React. In React I have a function of create element which takes 2 to 3 arguments. Okay, I'll tell you which those are. First of all, one is the awesome autocomplete. First one is the type of element. Second is an object. That object is props. Okay, properties or props, short is props. In that props you can give class name, you can give children. I'll explain what is children, and you can use other sort of properties also. In for our example, we only need a class name and a children. Okay, so in HTML when we add class, we just write the class keyword, but for React we write class name. Okay, reason for it is like I'll explain it later, but for now just understand that if in React you will write class name, and even class will work. Okay, if you write class it will work, but that's a discussion for separate time. And children, let me explain what is children. So basically children meaning, let's say I have h3 tag. So this is my h3 and this is my some text. So whatever is there in between the opening and closing, okay, of the component, I'll just now name it as component. This need not be h3, this could be any custom component. This could be any custom component in React. Anything that is in between the opening and closing of the component is the children of that component. Okay, and it need not be only text. Okay, it could be other components itself, like other comp. So now these both of them are children of my comp. Okay, so what I want in between h3 tag, I want Avengers assemble, hence I put children as Avengers assemble. Okay, so let me remove that, and there is one more argument. Okay, the third one, again that is children passing as a string, but not as a string, but it's just another way of passing children. So I'll show you that just in a couple of minutes, but first for now I have created the HT element, and what I'm now going to do, I'm going to render it. So I'll do ReactDOM dot render. Yep, h3, this is my element where I want to render in the root. So this is done. So let's go back, and actually before that I just want to change the text a little bit so you know that it's different. Okay, so going back to browser, we got it right. Let's see our yep, this is what we had in our HTML. Now if you go inside it, we have our h3, we have our container class, and we have the text. Now just see the difference. This is the declarative way of doing it. This was the imperative way of doing it, meaning here I had to create the element, explicitly give inner text, add class, then append. Append though I have to do here also, but at least these three steps were convert it into just one function call. So in React has a just one function create element where I just pass the things as arguments, like the type of element, class name, children, whatever, and I can get the result. I can get the element created. So these steps are converted into just one step. So that's what difference between imperative and declarative. I hope that is clear. And one more thing that I want to show is that the children prop differently, right? So if I just remove here, I can give it as a third here. I will just assemble React just a third. So, yep, I'm able to see it. If we even check the DOM, same, nothing, no change. Okay. So either you can pass as the third argument, or you can pass in the props object itself. Okay, anyways, it's fine. So this is like very important for you to understand how React works over here. Okay, let me just check the chat, otherwise I'll continue. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, Shubham also actually did guess it correctly. Fine. React DOM reveal scripts. Yep. Mrityunjay also correct. Yes, code using for giving suggestion. It's Copilot actually. But yeah, that the other one that is given at ES7 plus, that is also a good one. Okay, Copilot is different. That's not a I would say snippet suggestion. That's sort of an AI code generator. But yeah, you should definitely have the ES7 plus wala extension. Okay, cool. Everyone understood? I hope everyone is clear till now. I hope there are no doubts. Let me just continue. If there are doubts, so let me know. Now, thing is, if you have been seeing any React code, or if you have worked on React applications just for a tutorial sake or something, you would know we do not write our JSX like this. Sorry, we do not write our elements like this. We write it in JSX. Okay, so what is JSX? So what Facebook team did, like Facebook, the one who created React, they did that. They understood that if you give this API to developers, the code will soon become cluttered, and even developers will be frustrated creating elements like this. So they created another syntax for us to create those elements, which is known as JSX. I'm not sure about the full form. Let me just check. Here also I mentioned all those things in the slides, so you can get that. Yeah, JavaScript XML. So it is simply an syntax extension of JavaScript. It allows us to write HTML in React within the JavaScript code. Okay, so it's like an amalgamation of HTML in JavaScript. And how do you translate it? So you use a transpiler. The popular one is Babel. So use the transpiler Babel, and that Babel will convert your JSX into React.createElement function calls. Okay, let's see that. So first of all, I'll need a Babel, so I'll import that. Babel CDN. Yep, this is the one. I need to enter script so that I don't miss any of the tags. Yeah, this one. So just like I have imported the React and ReactDOM scripts, I have now imported the Babel script. Okay, and now I have to do one more change. I have to tell this script tag that whatever I'm going to write now is not plain JavaScript. You need a transpiler to transpile it. So I am telling it via this text type text/Babel. So with this I am indicating the script tag that whatever I'm going to write, you might need Babel transpiler to convert it. Okay, so let me just comment this part. const h3 jsx equals to I just write jsx over here and I add a class. Okay, so this is how we create elements using JSX. Very simple, right? It's almost like how you write HTML, except for some changes, like you have to here you have to do everything of camel case, and class is known as class name. So there are several differences that we'll learn later, but yeah, this is how you create. And I'll just add it over here, JSX. Yep, it's there. Let's check. Yep, it's there. Awesome. Now how did it work? This was converted into this using the Babel transpiler, and then it worked. Okay, so that's how it works. That's why we need Babel. Cool. So now I'll show you one more thing, and then we can understand how create react app works. Basically, people just start with create react app and start developing create react app, but they don't know how internally it works. So just I'll do one more thing, and then I'll explain how create react app works. So let's say I'm using a different way of, I'm using a function basically instead of the constant. So const h3, or let's say my comp equals to function that returns me this JSX. I'll just use the same thing over here. So instead of the constant, I'm storing it in the function. Okay. Now this is known as your component. This is a functional component, very basic functional component. And if you want to render a component, there is a special syntax you have to use. You have to use my comp, just like a tag. That's all. And if I see this in my, yep, I'll just change a bit so that you know that's a functional component. Functional. Yep, same thing. If I go easy, same thing. Okay. But this time it was a functional component. This is how you create components. This is one way of creating components, but another way is class. But yeah, this is one way of creating your components, and this is how you render it. Okay. Now let's understand how create react app works. So I already opened a project of created by create react app. Let me just close all. And so once you create any react app, you get this sort of folders, right? Except for yarn lock. Yarn is because I use yarn. Otherwise the folder structure is same. You get all these files. If you go into src, there will be one app.js and there will be one index.js. These are the important ones. So if you go to index.js, you will see this. Where it looks very similar, right? ReactDOM.render. Ignore this strict mode. Even if you remove this, it will still work. But I'll explain that later. Here you see a component app. Where is that getting rendered? Document.getElementById root. But I don't see any index.html. Where is it? Nope. These two folders I anyways added by myself. So where is the index.html? It's in the public folder. In public folder you see there is index.html, and here it is your div with an ID of root. So basically whatever React application you write, everything is injected in this index.html at the end using this call of reactDOM.render. Okay, and your app.js is your sorry your main component in which you write your all different components. This name can be anything. You don't have to write same name like app. It could be anything, but you have to have one main component in which you have all your other components, and that main component has to be rendered using this reactDOM.render call. And where does this get rendered? In the index.html over here. So I hope now you understand how create react app works, not just using it. You now understand the concepts about it. So I'm going to look at the chat. If you understood, just let me know if you understood, and then we can continue forward. Understood. Okay, great. uh, Awesome. Can we, sorry, I think I missed some questions. Let me check. Can we use React in an existing Angular project? Yeah, you can. There are different ways, like micro front ends. So you can use the one of the way that I know is module federation by Webpack. You can use that. Just explore module federation. You will be able to do it. What extension we need for use React? So in your VS Code, you just need one extension. I'll show you. Yes, someone already mentioned it. This one. You need this one. This extension. ES7. Just search for ES7. You will get this one and just install that. This GitHub Copilot is just extra thing. You don't need it. Okay, that's not important. Yes. Okay, cool. So people are understanding it. Great. Let's continue. Awesome. So till here, I hope everything was clear. If there are any doubts, just put it in the chat. I'll look at it later. No issues. Now, we understood how React works. Now let's understand. Let's go back to the slide actually. If I don't break the flow, I already have the flow in my slides. Again, I have mentioned everything over here, and code snippets are also given. Okay, you can click to these links. Okay, and you will get the code and all stuff. Yeah. But if there is something missing, I'll update the slides. Don't worry. And do let me know if there is anything missing in the slides you want me to update. Let me know in the Discord. I'll do it whenever I get time. If there is anything wrong, any spelling mistake or anything, just do let me know. I'll update it. Now you understood how C area works that I taught you. Now important thing, main core part of React. How does it update the UI? So two things we are going to assume: state and props. How it? I have not told yet discuss about state and prop, but just understand that's something. Okay, actually I'll just define what is state. State is anything that changes in your website over time. Okay, anything in your website that changes over time on your website is a state. Okay, let me take an example of Amazon.in. You'll be able to understand it. Here if you see this logo, let's say this is permanent, so that would not be a state. But this thing, the language, this is a state because that depends on what I select. Okay, then if you go to this header, this is a state because that will keep on changing, and also it will be every time. Let's say after a couple of days, it will there will be new banners. Okay, if you go to this list, today's deals, this is in your state. This will be an array in your state, which will have the product description, product image, URL, and all the product price and all those stuff. So anything in your website that changes over time is your state. Okay, so yeah, that's there. So now we have to have a brief idea of a state. Let me explain what virtualDOM is. So virtualDOM is a tree of objects created by React.createElement API. Okay, so okay, now I'll just close that because we don't need it anymore. Yeah. So now when I call this function React.createElement, it returns an object over here. This is your virtualDOM object. Okay, and how does it look? I'll show you. This is how it looks. Very small, very minimal. Okay, it only contains very minimal things. It has a type of which is using symbol. Okay, so if you are aware that JavaScript has a primitive data type known as symbol. So if anyone ever asks you where symbol is used, this is one use case. You can tell them it is used to uniquely identify the virtualDOM nodes. Okay, so yeah, this is symbol React.element. So basically what is symbol? It will always for even same string return a unique identifier. Okay, that's what symbol does. Nothing too much to worry about. Then if you see, I'll just show you the important points. Key will be important when you are displaying list of items. Props as I told, right? The object that contains the, let's see here, it's children, it's there. If there was a style added to it, the style would show here. Here I have a method of on click in this particular node, so that's why on click is being shown. Okay, then yeah, type, what type of it is, element is, so it's button. otherwise it will, if it's a custom, it will show you something else. So this is your virtual DOM node. Okay, basically the object that is created by react.createElement. Okay, so that is each DOM node. Now all these DOM nodes combine and form a DOM tree. Okay, on the root of it is the your I think the root element, the document.get element by id root, that is in your root, and everything else is the forms a tree. Okay, now whenever a state or a prop update occurs, okay, so either in the prop is updated or any state is updated, another virtual DOM is created. Okay, so first virtual DOM is created whenever a React component mounts meaning first time it is rendered on your screen. At that time a virtual DOM is created, and whenever any state or prop update happens, another virtual DOM is created. Now what happens is both of these virtual DOMs are compared. How are they compared? They check each and everything. Let's say only this children changed. Okay, then they'll note, okay, only that children changed. Let's say if you only a particular style has changed. Okay, I'll just show you. So if you want to give style, this is how you will give style equals to color and background. I'll explain in detail how this style is working, don't worry. For now, just explaining the virtual DOM concept. So, blue. So let's say currently it was red and this changed to white. So it will make note of that. Okay, not the entire style prop changed, only the color changed. So it will make note of that, and whatever changes are there, it will note it. It will batch together all those changes and then update in the actual DOM. And why is this faster? Because creating virtual DOM is extremely fast, because each nodes are just plain objects, whereas DOM nodes, they are very expensive to create. Again, one thing I'll mention, DOM manipulation is not a issue. The process of after updation of DOM, okay, using JavaScript, painting the UI in the browser, that is a bit time consuming thing. Okay, for that you need to understand the concept of critical rendering path. So I will have a dedicated video about critical rendering path, but for now I'll explain you. So critical rendering path basically has 6 steps. Okay, so whenever you, I'll explain you, don't worry, I'll explain you in brief so you will be able to understand. So what is the actual issue, why this react faster, and why that would be slow if you do it with plain JavaScript. Okay, so let me go over here and I'll do a hard refresh. I think hard refresh is control shift refresh. Okay, it's creating new tabs. We just hard refresh Firefox, control plus shift. Okay, so okay, let me just do it, control shift R. Great. So what happened now is that first of all, one thing that you should understand is that what I did to serve this index.html is I created a local server. Okay, first of all I have created a local server sorry, a local server which will serve this index.html file. So whenever I hit this URL, okay, it will serve me the index.html file. And this is known as your loopback address. Okay, it can also be known as a local host. You can, instead of using 127.0.0.1, you can use localhost. That is also fine. So on this particular port I am having this file. So I have set up the server and now I am requesting this file. So it will return me that index.html file. And once that file is received, that's the only thing that is requested. All the things that are coming, that is not requested from the browser at least. Okay, now what happens is we see the response. Go to the raw. What browser does now, it will walk through the entire code. It will go to HTML to HTML. There's a meta. Okay, meta. Okay, it encountered a script tag. It saw that this script is to be requested from somewhere else. Okay, then it requested that thing. Okay, so this 302 ignore, just make sure this 200. So Actually this address was different, that's why it redirected, and this is the actual address. So once it encountered this URL and it had to import it in the script tag, it requested for that. So this is the request for that. Okay, then came the next request of this, and then came the request for Babel. So all of these were requested. That was not requested by the browser when I initially wanted to get index.html, but within the index.html during parsing these three were encountered, and hence those are requested. For this, for our code, this there will be no request because that's our local code. We are not getting it from any other URL. So that will be executed locally. But this entire path, okay, of parsing the HTML, okay, that is part of your CRP, which is known as critical rendering part. In critical rendering part, first part is creating your HTML DOM. Second is creating your CSS OM. So just like HTML DOM, there is CSS object model. Third would be your render tree. So combining your HTML DOM with your CSS DOM. So just like HTML DOM has HTML tree, CSS tree, they'll combine and put together a render tree. Then comes the layout. Okay, layout meaning according to your screen where what should be placed. So let's say you have 3 blocks, okay, in your website. So this block will be over here, this block will be over here, this block will be over here. That's layout. Okay, and then comes the paint. Okay, and in between JavaScript comes. So I just forgot, but that if there is any JavaScript, if there is any external request like this, okay, so that is one of the part. And the last one is painting. So painting, like giving the colors and all those parts. So this is your entire CRP. If you want to learn in detail, there is a free Udemy course. You just go to JS Web. This is my guide. Okay, I think some of you might be knowing it. I discussed about CRP. Yep, here this course, okay, or this blog. Any of these you can refer. Both are free. So see constructing DOM tree, constructing CSS DOM, running JavaScript, creating render tree, layout, painting. Okay, you can understand this in detail. I will definitely create a video on this, but for now, just gist of it. So that's why virtual DOM, it batches all the updates together and send it in one go, and that's why the DOM is updated only once, and that's why React is faster. Okay, and doing it with plain JavaScript is not so fast. Good, and this is how your virtual DOM looks. Great. So now let me see in the chat if there is an issue, and if you understood, then just write I understood so that I know. Where can we see virtual DOM node in browser? Okay, that actually I had to configure my own React app and using Webpack, and hence I was able to do it. Let me try. If I have that code, I'll show you. Is React Father Angular to virtual DOM? I think there are benchmarks for that. Okay, you can check it over there. I'll share that link. I'll just Google it and share that link if you want to check what is faster. Okay, let me just share that one. React Angular, some benchmarks were there. Not just these two, like with all of them, there's on website. I'm not good. JavaScript frameworks benchmark. This one, yeah, this one only. So you can check it over here. Okay, I'll share this link in the description later, but this is the one that you can use, or I can chat, I think. Sign into chat. Awesome. I'm streaming live. You are asking me to sign in. Okay, I'll share it later. In the description I'll add it, but this is where you can find different frameworks and their performance. Cool. But I hope you understood the virtual DOM part and virtual DOM node, right? How do you see this? For this, I have to check. Okay, I'll show you in the next session if possible, because I need to find that part where I had configured my own webpack, and in that I had gone to the React code and I had added this console log where I was able to see this. Um, mm, but if I can, okay, wait, now I can do it. No worries. Okay, I'll try only one. Okay, for now. Okay, let me just check now. Yep. I was able to find it. I'll show you. So if you go in the node model, so this is something I have configured on my own. So I just used webpack config and I configured this, and in node modules, just go to your, this will not work in create React type. Okay, they I think they somehow remove the console log. So if you go to the React library in CJS, common JS basically, in here you have to add it in the where React function is getting called, console dot log. Yeah, here. So in your React, this function, before you return the element, here I'm doing it. So here if you do this, you will be able to see it, each and every DOM node that is being created. Okay, but again you have to configure your on your own. I'll see if I have put this in my GitHub. I'll share that in the description also, so you can just clone that and edit and then check it. Okay, but yeah, this is how I saw the DOM nodes, virtual DOM nodes. Okay, we go back to, cool. So virtual DOM now is done. Now let's understand about JSX. So JSX is not that complicated. It's just syntactic things. So mm, so if you want to add anything dynamic, okay, in your JSX, you have to use the curly braces. Okay, so I'll show you. So if you see, if I wanted to, if I had this in a different variable, and now I have to access it here in my JSX, I have just to use curly braces text. Okay. Similarly, if my class name was in the variable, I would use that. So anything dynamic that you want to access in your JSX, you have to use wrap it between curly braces. And apart from there are another references like class is class name, which I already mentioned, and giving style, you have to pass a object. Okay, so I'll explain that. So const style obj. So if you see, this is an object, and the difference is that in CSS usually we have it like in hyphenated, and we don't have to do this quotes and stuff. But because this is an object, okay, that's why it will be camel case. So font size usually it will be font dash size, right? But here because it's a object, it is fonts camel case thing, and you have to put it in the quotes. Okay, so that's one more change, and this style object will be passed over here, style. So basically what you are doing is in your style prop you are trying to access a object. So one misconception with people who learn React using tutorials is that they think that okay, I have to use double curly braces, that's all I know, to give styles. Okay, but they don't understand what does it mean. This is what it means. It is not like double curly braces. It is like this is an object, and that object basically because it's a dynamic thing. That's why you are accessing it using the curly braces. That's all. Okay. So that anything else about JSX? Yeah, when method if again it's a camel case. If I want to give a method, I'll give like on click. Okay, and because the method will be dynamic, so I'll either give the name like handle click. I'll give the callback over here, or if I want to do it inline, I can do like this. Again, this is like JavaScript, more JavaScript and less React, but yeah, so either of that you can do. um, mm, Styling a JSX. So styling, there are different ways to do your style. One is inline that I showed you. Then there is module.css. Then there are normal.css external files. Then there are style components. Then there are external libraries like material UI, design and design, emotions, a lot of things. So that's again syntactic thing that we will learn in going forward in the class. Today I think I'll just focus more on the conceptual part. Style object, I already gave an example of this, so that's fine. State, awesome. So we came to state. So before we come to state, I'll show you at least external CSS. That's the most basic one. Okay, for that I'll have to teach components and all those stuff. So okay, for now, okay, not let's not do that. First, we'll understand how to create components. Okay, so let me just see how what's the time. Okay, so it's already 3. So I'll just take a short break of maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then I'll return. You can also take a break, and then we'll be back. Okay. I'm back. I'll just wait if you're left for a break, just 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can continue. So like before going forward, I need to show you how to create components, because state and all we'll have to do it before. Like, and there are two ways to create components. One is class components, one is functional components. So I'll just give a brief of them. Earlier, before version 16.8, okay, I think in 2018, if you have wanted to have state in your React components, then only class components were used, and functional components are basically presentational components, like only the UI would be there. Okay, but after version 16.8, hooks were introduced, and using the hooks you could have state, but hooks is not just for states, so I'm not explaining that what is the importance of hooks. That you can find in my blogs, in my Hashnote blog. I have written a detailed article of that, what are hooks and what advantage do they give. I'll talk about that later, don't worry. So basically there are two ways to create components. Okay, mostly all the new development that happens, it happens in functional components. Okay, but there would be code that would be written in your with class component also. Like earlier, if it is code is older than 2018 in your app, then it would be in class components also. So it is important for you to learn class components too. I know everyone wants to do function only, and function is the way to go. Okay, that is for sure. Even I'll be doing any projects, I'll be doing whatever teaching I'll be doing mostly in functional component only. But class is important for you to know, because if any time if you work in a company and if there is a bug and that code is in your class based component, then how are you going to debug it, right? So that's why class based it's good to learn. Okay, so I'll teach you the class based components first. So class based, as you know, you have to use the class keyword. Class my class, or I just put my class component that has to extend. Okay, that may inherit React dot component. Is everyone back? Okay, do let me know if there is any void audio video issue. Let me know. Yeah, where was I? Sorry. Yeah, this is how you create a class component. In that, you will have a constructor that takes props, and you call super because like you are extending it from some other class, you are inheriting, so you have to call that. This props is basically whatever is passed into your component. Okay, props we'll discuss later, don't, you can ignore this for now. But state, this is important. How you define state in your class component, it will be in your constructor in your this dot state. It can be outside also, it's fine, but I'm going for this approach. This dot state equals to, and there will be an object, so there will be only one single state object, and all your state will go inside this. Okay, counter. How can we have React explanation without counter? I'll just say here name Tony. Okay. Wow, Stark. Okay, fine, Stark. Great. So this is how you define state, and then how do you render your UI? Using the render function. In that you return your JSX. So let's say to I am a class component. Name is, how do you read state? So basically you can do this dot state dot name, or you could even destructure it over here. Okay, either of that is fine, like const name. I'll destructure both of them. Actually it was giving me suggestion, why did you yeah, you can do it like this, and you can destructure it and you can use it. Again, destructuring is JavaScript concept, so I hope you know that. And counter is fast. Counter, I'll not make it, I'll pick it p tag. So this is how you write your class components. Okay, now how to update the state, that I will show. So for that you will need a button increment on click equals to, so there is a method known as set state. That set state basically takes two arguments. Second one is optional, we'll talk about that later. The first one is the state. So here you have to update the state. Now common mistake that people who are not well versed with class component they do is like they directly update the state over like this. What this will do is let's see Steve. What this will do is it will override your entire state. Okay, it will replace your entire state with this. That's not what you want. You want the rest of the state to be same. And let's say there was like few more things in this, right? There was like a lot of other state in this, then you would lose that state. You don't want to do that. First of all, you spread your state, and then you override any property that you want to update. That's all. Again, this spreading and all those stuff is JavaScript concept. I hope you know that. I think I should start with JavaScript in the next session. We'll see. So this dot set state is the method to update your state. And first of all, you spread your state and update the part of the state that you want to update. Okay. So actually, it's increment and I updated the state name. That doesn't make sense. Let me just do counter and counter plus 1. So this is the name, and this counter is coming from here, and I'm adding plus 1 to it. Okay. Now there is one more parameter that you can give. That meaning if you want to do any task only after the state has been updated, because updating state is an asynchronous task. So if you want to anything that to happen only after the state is updated, then you can pass that as a function over here. Okay, so that's one more thing. Yep. So for now, let's see if this is working fine. Unable to connect. Did I stop the server? Component. Okay, I did something wrong. Okay. Yeah, my bad. Cool. So increment. So now we are able to update state in a class-based components. So this is how it works in class-based component. Now let's see how a state works in your functional component. Okay, so this is very important. Here I will be showing all the different ways of useState. All information that you require about useState, I'll explain all of them. Okay, amazing. See, I'll just give class and it's saving functional component. I want const functional component equals to here also you can take profs, but profs we'll touch upon later. And I have to change some of the code over here. Name set name, actually it's completely wrong, sorry. Yeah, so GitHub pilot is trunk. So weird suggestions. So okay, so first state in your functional component you have to use the useState hook. So how it works is like react.useState, or you can import it directly useState, that's also fine. So useState, and here I will say Tony stack, and what does returns? It just returns an array. Okay, it returns an array. So What does that array contain? Array contains the state and the state updater function. Okay, so the state will, and we can name it anything, state, and again we can name state updater also anything. But this is the convention that we follow, like the whatever name we give, just we just say set and the name of the state. Okay, that's the convention, but you can use anything. Okay, so that's how you create state. But there are lots of other different things about useState. I'll explain in this session only, don't worry. Return, I think I can use this. I am a functional or function component. Function. Name is to stack. Okay, I'll have a counter also in this. Const counter set counter. Here is the initial value. Okay, this is the initial value what you give, and then you can update it using the set counter or the updater. Counter हो गया, this हो गया. Then here updating how I'll show you. This is not like this. It is using the set counter method, and for now I'll just do counter +1. Okay. So one thing about functional component is that you can have your state in different like variables. You don't have to have it in one object, but if you wanted, you can have it in one object. Like this would be one object, which could be this one. Okay, that would also work, but yeah, usually people decouple it, so that is one good thing about here. And let me just show you this demo so that then I'll explain in deep how this works. I have a function component, increment, working fine. Okay, so till here everything was basic. Okay, there's nothing tough that I have taught till now. Not just tough, but nothing that you might not know already. Okay, now what I'll teach is something that you might not know. Okay, so before that, let me check if there are any doubts or anything. Okay, what is a hook in React? So hooks, actually I will explain. Okay, let me explain it today itself. Hooks are nothing but functions. Okay, in general they are just functions. They take some argument and they return some value. So there's the main, like, simplest form of definition. But the name hook, meaning it hooks into your React component. So that you will understand when I explain the lifecycle methods. Okay, so in class-based components we have some lifecycle methods like component did mount, did update, will unmount, and in functional we don't have. So in functional component, if you want to hook in between your functional component and to do something using a useEffect, then that's from where the hook comes from. The terminology hooks come from, but hooks are nothing but functions. Okay, so don't make it complicated. Okay, it's very simple. So I hope that is clear. Use hooks to change state. Okay, yeah, that's one of the use. Okay, to change the state. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think till now everything is clear. So let me go ahead and we show different things about this. So here, if I do, okay, one more thing I have to show. Console.log functional component rendered. So whenever the functional component initially mounts, this function will be executed. This function will be executed, meaning this will be logged into the console. So let's just go and check that. Refresh. Yep, it has been logged in the console. Okay. Also, whenever we update the state, this function will be executed again. If this function is executed again, we should see this again. Correct? So let me show you that. So this is there once. If I click increment, you see here it is now printed 2 times. If I increment more, right, it is that many times it is getting printed. Why? Because that many times this function gets executed. Okay, so whenever a state update occurs, the functional component or any component, like, it gets executed again. So when it gets executed again, we see this console log in our console. Okay, now let me show you one more thing. If I update the state as the initial value, Okay, now I'm updating the state as the initial. Whatever the initialization was there, I'm updating it with the same value. Let's see what happens. So initial rendering, I'll just refresh it again just to get it clear. So first of all, we saw the console log. That's fine. Now I'm updating it. Do you see any rendering happen? Do you think this getting printed? Nope, it's not true. Why? Because React knows that you're trying to update the state same value as the initial state, and hence it did not re-render your component. It did not execute this function again unnecessarily. Why? Because even though you did call the set updater of your state, but you pass the same value as initialized value, and hence it did not update it. Okay, well, let's do one more thing. Let's say I do it 1. Okay, set counter 1. This is a different value. This is not 0, this is 1. So what will happen now? Refresh. No, it printed over once. I incremented, it printed again. Expected. State change. It saw that it is not the same initial value. It executed the function again. Fine. Let me update it again. Okay, it printed once more. Let me update it again. Nope, it's not increasing, only 3 times. Why? So this is again one more thing with the useState is that if you are updating the state with the same state as your previous state, not the initial state, okay, previous state, so it will allow it once and then it will not allow, then it will not render it again. Okay, I'll repeat it. This is a little bit confusing. Refresh, initial state. Okay, so it was rendered, the component rendered once. Increment, because it was a different state, it rendered, that is expected. Now when I click on increment, it is going to update the state as the previous state. So our previous state will be 1 and new will be 1, but it will still allow it once. So increment, so it allowed. If I do it again, it will not allow. Okay, so this is again one more caveat with the set state. That's the simple thing. Now let's understand one more thing. In your counter, not you can provide values, but you can also send callbacks, meaning you can send a function over here, a callback function over here. And why would you want to do function? In that function you will have access to your current state. Okay, let me explain that. Const update count. So this is a function. It will have access to your current count, so counter, and then it will update that plus. So here you can directly put, instead of any value, you can put update count. We go back, refresh. Working as expected. But instead of directly accessing the counter, I am getting the current state and then updating the next state. Okay. So if you pass a callback over here, it will have access to the current state and then it will accordingly update the next state. So if your next state is dependent on your current state, then you can use this callback. Okay. You can do it inline also. I could have done it here also. Counter plus 1. Okay, this also I could have done. It will also work. I'll just comment this. Working as expected. So either you can give it inline or you can put it in a separate function and pass that callback over here. Anything is fine. So this is another. Okay. Then can someone tell me what are the data types that I can pass in useState? Any data type. Okay, so any JavaScript data type. Cool. I have one question. So let's say I say all primitive data types, then objects and array. Yeah, correct. Can I pass functions? Yes. So we can pass function, and those functions will help you do lazy initialization. Okay, so I explained what is that. don't worry. So what I'll do here currently is I will have here const initial state to I just return 20 stack, and I'll put it over here. So what useState will do is it will know that this what I have passed over here is a function, and it will execute that function, and whatever it gets from it return value, it will update the initial value as that. We can even check over here. So name is useState, working fine. But you might think, why would I even want to do this like directly? Why shouldn't I put the value over here? Why do go through this? I'll explain that. So let's have one more state, const some state. I'm not going to use this state, I'm just going to show something. That's why I will just and I'll just do console log over here. Sum was initialized. Okay, and here I'll make it I'll do console.log name was initial. Okay, cool. So let's go back to our here. If you see now, we see name was initialized, we see sum was initialized, and we see functional component render. So where are these console logs coming from? One is our console log which was here, one is coming from this state, okay, it's useState, and one is coming from this function. Correct, fine. This is expected because of whenever the component mounts, the entire function is executed, and hence everything will be executed. Fine. Now let me increment it. So I incremented. If you see, sum was initialized again, but name was not initialized again, and this was unnecessary. Why do I need to initialize sum again? I don't need to initialize it. I already know this. I will get it state from previous state, right? Or whatever the new state is. It is. Why do I need to go to initialize it again? And it happens n as number of times we do, right? See, sum initial, sum was initialized, sum was initialized. So in order to do lazy initialization, okay, at that time you can use a callback over here and put that over here. So it will be initialized only once in the entire life cycle of your component. Okay, and why is this important? Like, if your state initial state is something like new date or something like that. Okay, so at that time, basically some computationally expensive thing. Okay. Okay, I maybe have done something wrong. Okay, let me check the error. Objects are not. Okay. This rendering part is dot get date. Some function should be there in that. Cool. So this was not an issue. So here, if like new date is there, some computationally expensive thing is there. Okay. Then you can use it as a callback over here, so it will be initialized only once. Okay, and you don't have to initialize this again and again because it will be computationally expensive. Okay, so it's giving today's date, basically 13th. So because I use their get date, that's all. So I think that was all about the useState. Okay, all caveats about useState. If there is any doubt regarding anything in useState, do let me know. I can clear it now. Function is type of object. Yep, everything in JavaScript is object basically. Yeah. Any doubts in useState? Otherwise, I can continue and we'll move on to the next part. Okay, I don't see any doubts. Cool, we can move on to the next part. Great. Here also I have given everything in my slides so you can refer them. Yeah, now let's understand different phases of a React component. So there are only 3 phases. Okay, one is mounting, one is updating, one is unmounting. What is mounting? Mounting meaning when your component is rendered for the first time. Okay, updating when your component is re-rendered due to a state or a prop change, or there are other few scenarios also, but yeah, due to state or prop change, if your component re-renders, that is your updating phase. And unmounting meaning when your component is about to be removed from your DOM. Okay, so maybe even meaning it's going off the screen, like it's like if you change the page or anything like that. So mounting, updating, and unmounting, these are the 3 phases. In these 3 phases there are various lifecycle methods. Okay, and when I say lifecycle methods, method meaning in class. Okay, so I'll show you one more, I'll explain you one more thing. Functions meaning normal functions. Methods are only present in your objects. So meaning I'm talking about class-based components. So methods can only be in your class-based components. It cannot be in your functional component, but there are a way to mimic them, so I'll explain that. So let's look at all the lifecycle methods. There are technically there are like 10, around 10 or 10 plus, but we will be talking only majorly about 3. Okay, which is component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount. Okay, so but let's briefly go over all the lifecycle methods. Lifecycle. There was an here. So mounting phase. Okay, there are 3 phases. So first one is mounting. The first function that executes is your constructor. Okay, again I'm repeating, it's only about your class-based components. So first thing that gets executed is your constructor. Then there is something which is known as get derived state from prop. Okay, earlier this was used, but now it is advised not to use it. Instead you should go for hooks in that useEffect, just pass your prop as your dependency. I'll explain that later, don't worry. But you should, if you're doing class-based components, try to avoid using this. Okay, I'll show you. Like, it has given, see, rare use cases. It has very rare uses, and derived state should be used sparingly. Okay, so don't use it all the times. What this does is, like, if you want to update your state based on prop change, then you can use this method. Okay, so this method basically will accept your props, and based on those props you can update your state. Then comes the render method, which is actually our JSX, which is returns our JSX. And then comes at the end component did mount, meaning your component has now mounted. Okay, but this is the important one in this phase. Okay, this is one more unsafe or deprecated one, component will unmount, but no one uses it, so just avoid. Okay. Updating phase. Updating phase, again we have get derived state from props. Then should component update. This is again an important one. This helps us in optimizing our React components. We'll talk about this in later sessions. Then comes render. Then comes get snapshot before update. Okay, so this is just to get a snapshot, like how your actual JSX look like before you are updating it. Then comes component did update. This is like at the end, like after everything happening, then this method comes, component did update. So in this phase, component did update is your important method. Again, 2 replicated method, don't use it, just for your information, they are there. And in unmounting phase, there is just one method, which is component will unmount. Okay, so yeah, that's there. And there is one more phase, error handling. We'll talk about this when we talk about error boundaries. So don't worry, I'm not skipping this, I'll talk about it later. So important method, as I told you, it's component did mount, component did update and component will unmount. Cool. So let's talk about them. So in my class component, what basically I will do is not const directly I can have component did mount. Okay, nice. Then component did update, and component will unmount. Okay, so these are the three lifecycle methods which you can override in your class component. Okay, so these methods are already there. Okay, return, you can override and you can change the behavior. You can basically, if you want to do something once your component is mounted, once your component is updated, or before your component is going to be unmounted. So if you can if you want to do anything else, then you can use these methods. Okay, usually component did mount is used to fetch any data from external sources. Okay, same for component did update, and component will unmount is used for any cleanup stuff, like if you want to remove event listeners, or if you're having socket connections you want to remove that, or any sort of cleanup thing that you want to do once your component is unmounted, like before your component gets unmounted. Then you will use component will unmount. Okay, so I have given a brief theory about that in here. So each component has several lifecycle methods. You can override at runtime, to run the code at particular prime in your process. Component did mount runs after component is rendered for the first time. Did update runs after component is re-rendered, and will unmount runs just before a component is removed from DOM. So just pay attention to the naming. Okay, this is will unmount. You cannot do anything after your components is unmounted, right? So this is will unmount. Other two are did. So make sure, because a lot of time, even in interviews, whenever I am talking about lifecycle methods, and the interviewee, when I'm taking interviews, people always misspell it. Okay, they say did unmount, or they'll say will mount. This name matters. It's not just for sake. Okay, this name matters. So make sure, because there are methods like will mount. There is method like will update, but those are deprecated. But there is nothing like did unmount. Okay, so make sure you are spelling this correctly, pronouncing or whatever it is, name it correctly. And as the name suggests, these are methods and not functions, as they can be they can be only overridden in the class components. Cool. So now that I have overridden this, let's see when these get executed. So for getting this executed, I'll have to create one more component, const parent component equals to, I'll make this a functional. I'll have to have two states for your const name, not is this is build functions. Basically I'm having a boolean variable for both types of component. Function actually not required now, but I'll require it sometimes, so that's return also. You notice in JSX you have to wrap your all your things, all your basically in your JSX it should have only one parent. Okay, that's why I'm wrapping everything in div. And there is something which is known as React fragment also, so I'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think yeah, this is it. Awesome. This is what power of GitHub pilot. Awesome, I like it. Earlier it was giving some weird suggestions. This time, first time it gave correct suggestions. Because I think I have done this earlier, so it recorded it. Cool. And actually it's not true, it should toggle, so it should be toggle. So is function not is function. Okay, now let me render this one in my parent, not parent, yeah, parent only, correct. So now if I mount it, once I click it, it will be mounted. So I see component did mount. Okay, now if I increment, because I updated the state, I am seeing component did update. And if I again toggle this, it will be unmounted. So I saw component will unmount. So this is how your lifecycle method works in your class-based components. I hope that is clear. Now to enact those, okay, having similar functionality of those lifecycle methods in your functional component, you need to make use of useEffect. Okay, so that's another hook. So let me bring in that hook. React.useEffect. So useEffect is another hook. As I said, all hooks are just functions. So this function takes two arguments. First is the callback that you want to execute, and second is the dependency array. Okay. So this callback will be executed once the component has mounted. That is for sure. Now, if you want this callback to be executed at different phases, then you can manipulate that using this dependency array, meaning this callback is dependent on this array. So let's say whenever I change the counter, whenever the counter is updated, I want this callback to be executed again. So that I will put counter over here. Okay, but just for that you don't get confused, I'll put it in a separate use state. Okay, so here I'll say not here. Use effect callback executed. Here I'll say count updated use effect okay, but here I will just give into dependency array counter. And also this callback will also be executed in the mount phase also. Okay, it's not that because I gave it the dependency array only when this will change it will execute. It will also be executed on the mount phase, and after that only when the counter is changed, then only this callback will be executed. Okay, and there is one more part which is the cleanup. So if you return a callback, use effect cleanup, so this is fine. Why did I cut it? I should. So this will act here as your component will unmount. All the cleanup you can do. So basically you return a callback. Okay, you return a function from your callback that you have passed to useEffect. Okay, so this might be a little complicated. So if you're, I hope you guys are good with JavaScript. That's why I'm thinking like I'll take JavaScript sessions from next, and then we can switch and back and forth from React and JavaScript. But we'll see how it happens. So this is your function that is supposed to be callback function that is supposed to be executed. In that function, you have to return another function. This will be your cleanup function. This will act as your component will unmount. But there is slight difference of how this cleanup function works compared to your class components, compared to your will unmount. Okay, we'll see that. So I think everything is done. Let me just go back and refresh. I will mount it. So I mounted. Okay, let me remove other unnecessary stuff. This, if we comment this and this, that's distracting. Okay, I'll mount it. Okay, what happened? Why? Fine, it was not refreshed properly. Let me refresh it. Mounting phase. So this is the console log, that is fine. Use effect callback executed and counter updated. As I told you, right, that counter wala also will be executed at the time of mount. Okay, so this till now everything expected. Now I click on increment. When I click on increment, see what you will see. There will be something that you will not expect. So let me click increment and functional component rendered counter update. This is okay. I think this should be over here. Function. This is expected. useEffect execute is executed. Now if I do increment, see, this cleanup also was executed. So if your dependency array has something in that, at that time this cleanup will be executed before the re-render. So what we expected when we clicked increment, that this will be executed again because the component re-rendered, and we had put that whenever the counter changes this should be executed. Okay, but it also executed the cleanup before the re-render happened. Okay, this does not happen in your class components. In your class components, will unmount only gets executed when the component is unmounted. But in your use effect, okay, if your dependency array has any state and it has a cleanup function, then that cleanup function will be executed before the component gets re-rendered. This is a very important difference. Okay, and if I just now remove it, then as expected only cleanup one will be executed. Correct? So that's what it is. Okay, and if you want to play around with this is there in my workshop. That's why these slides are not mobile responsive, because it's in MDX and I have written a component over here, playable component, which you can inspect over here and put it on side and put it on side. Okay, so I do exactly what I have mentioned over here. Toggle class, go to console, toggle class component, you will see component did mount was called. Update state, component did update was called. Toggle it again, component will unmount was called. Okay, now toggle function component, you see use effect callback called. Update use effect cleanup was called, and then the because it was re-rendered, the callback was called. Or remember, whenever re-rendering and if there's a cleanup function, the cleanup will be executed first and then the actual function. And now if I toggle it back, the cleanup function only will get called. Okay, so you can play around with this and you can understand better, and you can use this code. You can this here I have also explained it very well. This behaves as component did mount, this behaves as component did update, and this behaves as component will unmount. Okay, so I think we have covered pretty much a lot of stuffs in today's session, and I hope you are able to understand these stuff, because it's not that I just don't want to just cover stuff. You should be able to understand all those stuff. So now let me know in chat whether you were able to understand, or otherwise I'll clear doubts. And I'm pausing it over here. I'm not taking any more new concepts, but if there are any doubts, I can tell you. Let me know if you were able to understand stuff. Okay. I'll just go on mute for some time. Okay, so I think everyone has understood. So just a second. Yep. So if I think you guys have no doubts, if you guys have doubt later also, you can pick in Discord group and I'll check on that. So based on what we learned today, I might give some assignment, like some sort of like normal only, not nothing too much to do. And yeah, apart from that, in next session, okay, do let me know if you want me to cover JavaScript from basics in next session, or should I continue with React. So based on the feedback, and also uh, what I think JavaScript was also required. So some people did ping me in LinkedIn also that they have not learned JavaScript, so will I be teaching JavaScript from starting or not. So can you tell me in chat whether you want me to cover JavaScript from start in next sessions and then maybe later continue with React, or you want me to continue with React? So based on that I will see, and you can update me this later also on Discord. I'll take a poll or something, because currently I see only 9 people are there, but I think based on the subscribers people will be watching this later. React only, okay. Okay, anyone else wants to share their opinion whether React or should I start with React only? Okay, okay, cool, great. So then I'll start JavaScript later mostly, but still I'll take a poll of majority people also, but mostly I think I'll continue with React, because I think React I can finish in 5 sessions with the at least the theory. I think 4 sessions will be done. The 5th session will be where we will implement a project, and trust me, I'll implement a very good project with a intermediate level code, and we'll be customizing it a lot, so don't worry. It will be a very small app, but the code wise it will be, you'll learn a lot. Okay. And if there is any feedback on the teaching, like something you want to change, something you want to update, do let me know. If I can change, I'll change it, otherwise we'll see. But content wise I know it's good, but if anything in changing, if you want me to take more breaks like for doubts or anything, you can ask me. And yep, I think that's it for today's session. If there is anything, I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. You guys can leave if you I'm done. Basically I'm done teaching today's session. Links I'll update. This one I have to update, right? I will update this one, and any other GitHub links that I have, I'll update it. The webpack wala, right? Webpack wala I will update. Welcome, Kush. Welcome. I will cannot pronounce your first name, but I'll say Birajdar. Welcome, Birajdar. Sorry about your name. Good morning. Cool. So I think we can wrap it up. If you want to ask any doubts or anything, definitely you can use Discord, and do share this if you on LinkedIn and stuff. If you learned a lot or learned something new from this, because that will help me like reach this video to different people also. And I do have a lot of plans going forward. So later of 2022, I have a cohort based course, which if you guys are interested, you can join and stuff. So a lot of stuff is coming up. This is just very much beginning of it. Every Sunday I plan to teach. So this session will only be on Sundays. I know there's a gap of 1 week, but due to professional and personal reasons, I will only be able to take on Sundays. But weekdays, sometimes I just do learning, meaning I just learn on my own and I live stream it. But that is on my own channel, Apuruk Hare. Okay, so you can join those sessions if you want. I'll update it in Discord also. But that is just me learning. That is not teaching sessions. Okay, so you can join that. You can check 2 sessions I already did, so you can check that. If you like that, you can join it. But these teaching sessions particularly will be happening only on Sundays, timing 2 to 4. Okay, so cool. I think that's it from my side. I think this one question does about difference cleanup in drawback. Will you do the sessions every day? No, only I updated to that. The way it works in class. Does that difference cleanup drawback? I think it's good that cleanup happens on update. I like that part actually. I would say it's a good part. It's not a drawback in useEffect that it is happening on every re-render. I think it's good. But again, it depends like what sort of functionality. If you are having a socket connection, if you're removing it again, that is not a good thing. So in that case, don't do cleanup in the useEffect of where you are having dependency array. if the use effect was here, if this cleanup function was here, then it will behave as you want. Like it will behave exactly as villain mount. Okay, I can show you that. So it depends. To control is on you, so you can use it however you want. So here, this thing, if I update, you don't see any cleanup, but if I close, you see cleanup. Okay, so it's totally control is on you, however you want to call it. Okay, it's not a drawback. It's an additional functionality. What I'll say. Okay, so cool, good question. Great. So now I'm closing the session, and I'll add timestamps and I'll add everything, so people who are watching later, you can skip to the parts that you want. So everything will be added, and even for your revision I will be adding timestamps, so don't worry about that. Okay, thank you for joining the session. I really appreciate it. I hope more and more people join the session so it can be more interactive. Yeah, so thank you. Bye bye.